This for me was by far the best thing that's happened in my startup career.
My aha moment throughout this program was when I, as a challenge owner, realised that we had a unique opportunity to actually shape the vision and the product for a company.
CivVic Labs has helped us get in contact and work with an organisation that typically we would have had to spend an enormous amount of time, resource and effort even to get in front of.
It's an amazing opportunity to work with a client that's committed to solving a real problem that actually impacts a lot of people.
They've opened doors for us that we wouldn't have otherwise thought that were possible.
It's been a way of sort of opening our eyes to the possibilities of AI and predictive analysis.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the information session. We are really happy to have you here, and we hope that we can answer all your questions, and we're looking forward to introducing you to the challenge owners. We would first like to start with acknowledging the traditional owners of the land and the rich cultural heritage of the lands on which we all find ourselves today. I'd like to just give you a little bit of background information about CivVic Labs. So CivVic Labs is a joint project between the Department of Premier and Cabinet and LaunchVic. And we have Andrew Neary from the Department of Premier and Cabinet with us here today. And I'd like to hand over to Andrew to give us a bit of background.
Hi everyone, we're just working on getting the slide deck up for you. This is a new tool that we're using today, Crowdcast, and so there's a few teething problems, but that's not to be surprised when we're all trying to struggle and deal with remotely working. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the CivVic Labs program. It's an initiative and a partnership between the Department of Premier and Cabinet and LaunchVic, and we're embarking on our third round now. And this is a really exciting time for us to be thinking about bringing government and startups together to solve public sector challenges. We work with a series of departments to identify challenges, and then we bring those challenges to you, the startups, to begin to solve and create solutions to those problems that allow us to move forward. Okay, we seem to have got a deck there. Elena, if you'd like to move forward to the next slide. Yeah, we're just going to run through the format for today. We'll talk a little bit, Tristan and I, about the format of the program. We'll then move into the challenges, and we'll have each of the government departments and agencies speak to you for a few minutes about their challenge, and then we'll have time to go across into the Q&A session. Tris, I'll throw to you.
If you have any questions while the session's running, just click on the Ask the Question button at the bottom, or pop something into the chat, and we'll collect all those questions and answer them at the end of each section. We will be sending you out to different breakout rooms after we've met the challenge owners. And so if you are looking for the other rooms, you'll see a very light grey schedule, session 1 of 7 prompt on the top left of your screen. If you scroll through the options there, that's how you can find your way to your breakout room of choice. And you can move between the rooms whenever you like. But that's later. For now, we're going to walk you through a little bit of the program. I'd like to start by introducing the CivVic Labs team. Myself from LaunchVic, and Andrew from the Public Sector Innovation Fund, which is part of the Department of Premier and Cabinet. And we also have Oscar McClelland, Elena and Holly that are part of the core CivVic Labs team. And as I said before, it's a joint project between government and the startup sector.
Next slide, please. Okay, so as I touched on earlier, CivVic Labs is really about bringing government and startups together to solve public sector challenges. Next slide, please.
You can hand over to me if you like, Elena.
This is a dual purpose program. We're interested in both creating solutions to public problems, which are owned by the public sector, as well as how we work with startups and businesses to create successful businesses to address those problems. We're not alone in this idea of bringing these two sectors together. We're one of a number of global initiatives that are working in the GovTech space and are looking to leverage the ingenuity and creativity of startups to bring solutions into the public domain. Significantly, the reason we've designed this program is because we acknowledge that in government, we're not the experts when it comes to technology. If you look at the following diagram, the green and the orange areas are the areas that we either know about technology solutions or we're less aware of what those technology solutions can offer. The biggest challenge for us inside the public service, though, is not knowing what we don't know about, which is the bulk of this diagram. We're hoping that by engaging with organisations like yourselves, we'll be able to demystify some of this area and use your expertise to come up with solutions that we're yet to understand or investigate. What we understand about this program is that it allows the public service to broaden our understanding of what is possible. We can work with startups to create prototypes in a much faster and more effective manner, and it gives us a better opportunity and a different way to procure solutions for government by introducing a novel procurement methodology and working with the startup community. Next slide, please. The program is made up of 3 phases. If you're not aware, 3 startups are chosen for each challenge we've published. These startups will undergo a 1-month pre-accelerator program, and then 1 startup will be taken through to a 3-month program. Finally, there is a $150,000 development phase, and each startup has the chance to earn a contract with their host department and challenge to take that solution forward into the development phase. Tris, I might hand over you to talk a little bit about the program itself.
Great, thanks, Andrew. So what are we looking for? What kind of startups are we looking for? We're looking for startups that fit with the challenge, that they're the right concept and idea, they've brought the right tech to the table, and they're a great team. We're also looking for startups that we can help to grow. So we're looking for high potential businesses that CivVic Labs program is really going to have an impact with. We're also looking for founders that are fast and courageous learners. It's a whole new learning curve coming into the sector. So the faster you can learn, the better, and the more you'll achieve. So startups that come into the program are given almost money can't buy access into government. You get to work really closely with the challenge owners on a weekly basis, and you get to understand the deep problem set that they have that you can then build a solution for. We also run a whole series of working with government and other masterclasses, and we bring experts in to help upskill everyone in those key areas. The other support we provide is one-on-one coaching, and that's specific to your startup. And we also have a hand-picked mentors to help with each challenge. So if you're successful in getting through the accelerator phase, the idea is that you've collected enough evidence and you've validated that your solution is on the pathway to helping to solve the problem. And if that's the case, then you have the potential of signing a $150,000 further development program with the government challenge owner. And you get to continue to work with that government partner to build a product that's not just great for them, but it's great for potentially other sectors and other government clients. So we have a very strong cohort effect, and you're seeing an image here of the second cohort. So far, we have run 7 challenges, and we've had a number of teams through the program, and we look forward to sort of all being in it together and building a great culture in the cohorts in the future. So if you're interested in applying to the program, applications close on the 27th of July. We're happy to take questions about the structure of the program now. And just a reminder, if you're wondering how to ask a question, if you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see there's an ask a question prompt, or you can put something in the chat channel. And so we're just going to pause for a couple of minutes and answer any questions you might have about the structure of the CivVic Labs program before we go on and introduce you to the challenge owners. So if anyone has any questions, we're happy to answer those now. Okay, doesn't seem like anyone has any questions. That's good. So why don't we, do you have to be based in Victoria is the first question. No, you don't, but the solution that you're developing needs to be rolled out with the challenge owner that is a Victorian-based organisation. So you need to be able to get to our sessions. Some of those will be virtual, and you need to be able to do all the customer discovery work with Victorian-based challenge owners. So if you can meet that criteria and you can show how you can meet that criteria in your application, that's fine. In terms of the stage of startup, we consider applications from all stages. We have mostly had early stage, however, really open to later stage. So that's completely open. Great. All right. Without further ado, let's introduce you to the challenge owners. If you've been looking at our website and watching the announcements, you'll know that we have 6 challenges that are going live. And so we're going to step you through, and the challenge owners are going to give you a very brief sort of introduction to their challenge. There are more questions? Okay, hang on a second then. Pausing.
We can continue to post answers in the chat channel if you like regarding these questions.
Yes. Okay.
So Holly will be answering your questions in the chat channel. Sorry, the Q&A channel.
Okay. Great. Okay. Great. Yeah. And so we'll move on to introducing you to the challenge owners. So let's start with the Liveability Challenge. And I'd like to introduce you to Michael O'Neill and Sarah Jenkins, that are going to tell you a little bit more about their challenge.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us. My name's Michael O'Neill, and I'm joined by my colleague, Sarah Jenkins, and we're from the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning.
Thanks, Michael. Hi, everyone. Before we begin, I'd just like to acknowledge that wherever we are in Australia today, we're meeting on the land of Indigenous custodians, and so I'd like to pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging, and also to any elders who may be joining us here today. Before we get to the crux of the challenge, we're going to start with a short video that's going to set the scene.
Too much and for too long, we seem to have surrendered personal excellence and community values in the mere accumulation of material things. Our gross national product now is over $800 billion a year. But that gross national product, if we judge the United States of America by that gross national product counts air pollution and cigarette advertising and ambulances to clear our highways of carnage. It counts special locks for our doors and the jails for the people who break them. It counts the destruction of the redwoods and the loss of our natural wonder in chaotic sprawl. It counts napalm, and it counts nuclear warheads and armored cars for the police to fight the riots in our cities. It counts Whitman's rifle and Speck's knife and the television programs which glorify violence in order to sell toys to our children. Yet the gross national product does not allow for the health of our children, the quality of their education, or the joy of their play. It does not include the beauty of our poetry, or the strength of our marriages, the intelligence of our public debate, or the integrity of our public officials. It measures neither our wit nor our courage, neither our wisdom nor our learning, neither our compassion nor our devotion to our country. It measures everything in short, except that which makes life worthwhile. And it can tell us everything about America, except why we are proud that we are Americans.
So at the heart of Kennedy's speech is the notion that we're measuring the wrong things if we want to understand what makes life worthwhile or livable, and that our focus on economic measures is really letting us down. Which brings us to the core of this challenge. How do we, as the state of Victoria, measure our success in achieving livability for citizens? Melbourne's claimed as one of the most livable cities in the world, but what does the word livability mean across our diverse state? And how do we know if we've successfully made ourselves a livable place, not just for the few, but for everyone?
That's why we're here today. As policymakers, we have no idea what livability means to the average or not so average Victorian. What it means to an irrigator in the Murray-Darling Basin, or an immigrant in Sunshine, a mother in Mildura, or an Indigenous elder in Fitzroy. In order for us to help define what livability is, we're going to use the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, as the framework. We've chosen these because they're global, meaningful, and they seek to measure a multitude of things that are livability related. We're looking for a solution that defines livability based on prioritisation of the SDGs and what Victorians want to see for our state.
And unlike other measures which exist today, through this challenge, we're putting the community at the centre, rather than what academics, think tanks, or policymakers sitting in government departments, like Michael and myself, think is important. Capturing the voice of citizens is the point of difference in this challenge, so we measure the right things and shape our cities and towns to meet the wants of the people who live there. As public servants, we know how to run a survey that collects demographic information. We even have a platform that helps us do that called CivVic. We also know how to commission polling data, and town hall forums are really second nature to us. What we're asking you is there a better way for us to find this information? How can we get a regular pulse check of how the Victorian community feels about livability?
What that all comes down to is this. We want to know what's important to people now so that we can deliver policy and programs that matter to Victorians. We want you to work with us to create a community-centred and dynamic measure of livability that reflects the needs and desires of the citizens here, while linking that to the agreed global goals and targets of the SDGs. You will need to develop a way to gauge community sentiment and undertake data gathering in a way that can be replicable so that we're not left with a one-time snapshot of what Victorians think. Using the SDGs allows us to compare ourselves globally, which is really important, and means you can export the solution you come up with around the world.
It's not just us as a department who want to find the answer to this question. We've pulled together a working group with members from across industry, government and academia who are interested in finding out what livability means and how to measure it. You'll have access to this group throughout the challenge, and they may just become your clients in future too.
So what do we need in a startup? Well, firstly, we have no idea what's possible to solve this problem, which is why we genuinely need new ideas and ways of doing things, and a partner with us on a shared journey of discovery. We need people who want to deeply engage with this problem, understand the elements, explore with us, and do the work bringing everything together. You have to be passionate about people and want to improve outcomes for Victorians. This should be coupled with your ambition for your startup to nail this challenge here in one of the most livable places in the world and take the solution you develop global on the back of that.
Thanks for joining us. We look forward to seeing you shortly in the Q&As.
Welcome, Esther.
Hi there. So, hi Katrina. So let's start. So I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet. I'm currently on Wurundjeri country of the Kulin Nation. I would like to acknowledge our elders past, present and emerging, leaders past, present and emerging, our heroes of the stolen generation, and I would also like to acknowledge all of you, our courageous pioneers, waymakers, game changers. My name is Esther Tambo. I'm a Wiradjuri woman of the Birigubbi Nation and a Meriam woman from far north Queensland. So let's get into the question that we're putting to you today. How can we use innovative technology to create a living, breathing view of Aboriginal culture? Or how can your technology help us to create a living, breathing view of Aboriginal culture? How can your technology help us to Aboriginalise spaces and help every user engage with their tribal instinct? Before I go further, I respectfully advise all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander viewers that this presentation may contain images or names of deceased people. The photos used in this presentation include visual images from the Visit Victoria website and the Aboriginal Victoria website. To kick things off, I want us to imagine ourselves in this role. Imagine we have a friend visiting Melbourne for the first time and we've agreed to show them around. We've said to them, sure bro, sure sis, I'm going to show you around. And in the back of the mind, we've already got it planned out. We're going to take them to our favourite barista because no one does coffee like Melbourne. And so in our minds, we have decided, yes, we're going to be the best tour guide. We're going to take people out to taste, hear and see and connect with people and places of Melbourne. We're already thinking about where we're going to take them, what we're going to tell them about people. An example of this is when I used to live in Brisbane and we had Petro Civoniceva living down the road, and he's a famous NRL player. And I would always, if visitors would come, I would always take them past Petro Civoniceva's house, and we would always have the luck of him being in the front yard, and we'd go past and we'd just do the big family wave, hey Petro, and we just totally, you know, we're family, like we're just waving like we're family. So this is the type of space I want you to imagine yourself in. So when we're thinking about that and where we're going to take people, where did we think to take this visitor? Did we first think of these places? Did we first think about these people? Why didn't we take them here? Why didn't we tell them? Why didn't we tell them about these amazing people? Did we share with them the meaning of these words? Now that we've thought on that for a little, how can you help highlight, celebrate and bring to life the rich history and culture of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders through cutting edge technology? Can you create a technology that can unite two worlds by educating the users so that the economic impact means that there would be an increase in tourism dollars that flow down to Aboriginal owned businesses? Just, are you open-minded? This challenge will require you to open up your mind and your heart and connect with culture, embrace culture, so that you have an understanding of the bigger picture. This will involve working with Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal stakeholders. This will involve the startup participating in cultural awareness training. And no, cultural awareness training is not a course. It's not a 5-step training. It's a continual journey. And I can tell you now, you're going to be absolutely blown away. In order to help change the user's mind about Aboriginal culture in Melbourne, you must be open to changing your mind as well and engage with us with a childlike mind and heart. Be open and ready to learn. Your heart towards this project is what's going to make the final product great. Then watch what happens next. Watch this space. Traditional owners of the land in Victoria are the Wurrung, Bunurong, Tanarong, Jawarong groups which form the Kulin Nations. Names like these are just going to roll off the tongue. You're going to finish this project and want more. What we envision for the product is that it would incorporate the leaders who have made a profound contribution to their community and to Victoria. our first pioneers, our courageous waymakers and game changers. We envision them as the storyteller. We want to tell their story. We want the user to connect with them, adopt them. They are our elders. These are our elders. This is our culture. This is a wonderful opportunity. If anyone wants statistics on growing economies or growing markets, I'm happy to provide them in the breakout session. But for the moment, I can say, hold on to your seatbelts. This has never been done before in any state or territory. We are pioneering something new. Your technology is going to make a way. In COVID times, the soil is fertile. Your technology is going to create its own momentum, its own market. Based on truth-telling, you're going to recreate history with your product. The department's agenda is to build opportunity and economic prosperity for all Aboriginal Victoria businesses. Your product is going to give the user an authentic experience, help the user experience authentic culture, something that goes past intellect, something that the user can see, hear, taste and feel, an experiential understanding of place from an Aboriginal perspective and open the experience to new demographics. I want to speak a bit on the stakeholders, but I can just say for now, as far as interest goes, there has been a lot of interest building already about the project. People are getting super excited. Our stakeholders from Melbourne City Council, the Koori Heritage Trust, Reconciliation Victoria, our lands are excited about what the product could look like. I just want to speak a little bit about the lands. They are the vehicle to all of Victoria. They can create the talk and create that momentum. It's like, if you've ever heard of the grapevine, this is the Koori grapevine. It is faster than any social media platform. They are already yarning about how deadly you all are. This is something to get excited about. To sum it all up, we want Aboriginal culture to be at the forefront. We want the user to stroll through the Fitzroy Gardens and instead of visiting the cottage, visit the scar tree. The bark of the scar tree was used to make a canoe. We want to engage the tribal instinct of the user. We know that connection creates unity. Unity creates order. That's our vision for culture here in Victoria, nationally and internationally. And people are hungry to see exactly that. I'll now leave it open for questions and...
Great. Thank you so much. That was an excellent presentation, and I'm sure you'll have a lot of people in your Q&A session in about 10 or 15 minutes. Thank you very much.
Awesome, thank you.
We are now going to hear from our next challenge owner, and that will be the Food Waste Challenge, and we're going to hear from Charles and Travis. We'll just ask them to come up to the stage. Great. Over to you guys. Thanks very much.
Let me pull up the presentation. Thanks, Tris. Thanks, Esther, also for that really moving story. So I'm Charles Tan. I'm from the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning.
And I'm Travis Hatton, the Food Waste Lead here at Sustainability Victoria.
And together we've got a challenge for you. How might we reduce food waste from businesses in Victoria? 1.4 million tonnes. That's the amount of food waste that businesses in Victoria generate every single year. This is the problem that we want to find solutions for, and it is also the size of the opportunity. Now, food waste is an economic double whammy for businesses because, firstly, they don't get to sell their products on the market. And secondly, they have to pay for someone else to collect or deal with the food waste that they've created. Now, as many of you already know this, it is also terrible for the environment. When food is sent to landfill, it decomposes and creates a ton of greenhouse gas emissions. But also, when we send food to landfill, we're also sending all the water, all the energy, and all the labor that has been put into creating the food in the first place. Hey, Travis, can you share a few stories about businesses that experience this problem right now?
Sure can, Charles. So I often hear stories from farmers that they've grown food that they either can't harvest or they can't sell. So what this means to our farmers is they are quite literally growing food waste. So Victorian farmers are looking for solutions that reduce the cost to harvest low-grade produce, that reduce the losses that happen at harvest time, or to find new pathways for the food they can't sell. These solutions will make sure our farmers get a fair deal for the food they grow, and that our apples and citrus don't end up in a hole in the middle of a farm somewhere in regional Victoria. Now, for food manufacturing businesses, their food waste is often the parts we don't typically eat, so things like shells, peels, seeds and bones. The cost to dispose this food waste is becoming increasingly expensive, and our food manufacturers are looking for solutions to stop this waste happening. The kind of solutions they're looking for will reduce food waste through more efficient processes, or will create products from their waste, like grapeseed oil or nutrient powders. I love to use the example of Vegemite actually. Back in the 1920s, Carlton United Breweries had an issue with food waste. They had food waste left over from the yeast from beer production. They shipped that off to another manufacturer that we all know and created the product Vegemite, which is now a national icon. I think that's a fantastic story of food waste that was transformed into a food product about 100 years ago now. So it's something we've been doing for quite a few years. So ultimately, the food waste that's being generated in manufacturing businesses these days is lower grade produce that has a high value, but we need to transform that value into a new food product. These businesses want to make money from their food waste and they want to reduce the costs to throw it out into landfill or even to compost it. So finally, hospitality businesses, they're struggling with food waste from a variety of angles. So food waste is generated during meal prep, from food that spoils before it's sold, and also from plate waste when customers don't finish a meal. So all of this waste costs money and carries a high environmental impact, like Charles just mentioned. Hospitality and food retail businesses want to save money, and they also want to help the environment, but they need fast and simple solutions. So these are hectic businesses and time is in short supply. So your solution for these businesses will make it quick and easy to reduce waste, and it won't add any costs, as these businesses are already operating on low margins. So back to you, Charles.
Thanks, Travis. So I wanted to ask you, what innovative solutions are you cooking up to solve this problem? We are really excited to hear about them, and we look forward to seeing you shortly in the food waste question and answer session. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks very much for your presentation. That sounds like a fantastic challenge to take on. Okay, the next challenge that we are going to introduce you to Chris Lee, Kim Cleary and Ziggy, and they're going to talk to you about the International Students Challenge. So let's invite them up to the stage.
Hi everyone. My name is Kim Cleary. I'm the acting manager of Student Initiatives team within Global Victoria. It's within the Department of Jobs, Precincts and Regions. And I'm here with my colleague Chris Lee and Ziggy Howe, who is one of our ambassadors. And we're just going to do a little bit of an overview of the challenge for international education. I'll just share my screen. All right, just click on slideshow. So our challenge is how to strengthen social and community connections for international students studying and living in Victoria. Just wanted to provide a little bit of context for this challenge before I pass to Chris. So Study Melbourne is a Victorian government initiative or brand, if you like, but we are currently supporting around 150,000 international students who are here in Victoria, and they come from around 160 countries. That number is actually a lot smaller than it normally is. Last year we had about 250,000 international students, but because of the coronavirus, the number is a little bit lower at the moment. Nonetheless, the economic and social contribution of international students is a real success story for Victoria. They bring cultural diversity, innovation and skills to our communities, and they really help to create some great people-to-people links that Victoria needs in order to succeed in a global economy. So, as you're probably all aware, the COVID pandemic has had some significant impacts on international students. They're particularly vulnerable and haven't been able to access some of the mainstream income supports. And so some of the things that they're facing at the moment are job losses, particularly in casual work, financial vulnerability. They have got concerns around their health insurance, adapting to online learning and visa issues. But I guess for this challenge, the most important impact is social isolation. And it's not just during the pandemic, but it's something that international students face generally because they don't have the same support networks that they would have if they were at home. And the Victorian government's responding to some of these issues. We've enhanced the services and supports that are available through the Study Melbourne Student Centre. You may have heard about the $45 million International Student Emergency Relief Fund that's providing grants of up to $1,100 for international students facing hardship. There are rent relief grants. We've provided grants to community organisations which are supporting international students, and students can also access the Work for Victoria program. The team's really looking forward to being part of round 3 of the CivVic Labs Accelerator program because it provides another avenue for us to support international students during this time, but also ongoing. And we're really keen to explore how the innovation ecosystem can help students better connect and also help the public better understand the importance of international students. So I'll pass to Chris to talk a little bit about a couple of other related programs and to talk specifically about the challenge. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Kim. So I currently lead on a range of initiatives under a strategy called the Lead Intern Volunteer and Experience, or LIVE initiative. The broadly speaking, the strategy sort of takes in and supports students' employability, entrepreneurship, and student empowerment. And a couple of examples of those programs is the Student Ambassadors program. So that's an initiative which supports. At the moment, we have 30 student ambassadors. We've just lost the PowerPoint, but we have 30 student ambassadors, and they undertake a range of volunteer activities, and they create content and are brand ambassadors for Study Melbourne. And the other initiative that was up there is called Leadership Labs, and that is a student leadership and empowerment initiative that supports students around sort of their entrepreneurship and leadership journey, and that's been delivered weekly, and we will continue to deliver that service focusing on social impact and entrepreneurship. So this PowerPoint is coming back. Yes. And the next slide, I believe, is talking. The next slide, I'll just talk you through the challenge. So as you know, the challenge is around how can we strengthen those social and community connections for international students while they're living and studying here. So we want to look at new ways to support our international student community feel welcome, connected and confident while they study and work and live in Victoria. As Kim mentioned, the current COVID pandemic has had a real impact on students studying here, as well as our reputation as a welcoming and safe study destination. So many students have reported feeling anxious, isolated and experiencing financial hardship, and also adjusting to social distancing measures and sort of have lost that sort of connection. So that's really highlighted the need to help international students build those connections and support during their time in Victoria. It's also highlighted the need to raise awareness within the broader community around the importance of international students, their social and economic contribution, and making them feel welcome and connected. Maintaining our reputation as a quality education and training destination and a safe and welcoming destination is critical to ensure the recovery of the sector and making sure that our students feel included and welcome. So, so we're seeking innovative solutions from you to address this need, create more opportunities for international students to strengthen and build those connections, and to help the sector recover. Now, I'd like to pass to Ziggy, who's one of our student ambassadors that I spoke about before, and Ziggy will talk to you as an international student and say a few words from her experience. And Ziggy will be able to take questions later in the questions and answer session as well.
Oh, hi everyone, it's Ziggy. I already graduated last year, December, like from Monash, and I feel overall I have a really positive study experience in Melbourne. It's just several tips. I think it could be even better. The first is I do feel I took a long time to fit in or settle down in Melbourne. And the second tips is I feel it may make me more comfortable or prepared if I can get enough information before I came to Melbourne, because most of the students, they don't just think themselves as a industry customer, but also but also part of the community that they are keen on contributing more, and even part of them, they think about spend their own future in Melbourne. So I feel that's another tips. The third one is because most of the students, before they really engage in the local community or they directly get the info from the local media, the second-hand info may kind of misleading. For example, due to the COVID-19, my mom just worried a lot about my situation. So I currently experience, okay, I'm really good and I feel really safe in Melbourne, and this kind of information to let him less worry about me. So yeah, I feel that's another important tips. Yeah, and I'm also open to more questions, and yeah.
Great. Thanks very much, team, for providing us with more insight into that challenge. We very much appreciate it, and it's an important challenge to address. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen with you now, and we're going to move on to the next challenge. And we'd like to introduce Fabio and welcome him to the stage. And he's a second-time challenge owner, and this is the second time they've been through the CivVic Labs program. Welcome, Fabio.
Thanks, Rich. I'm just going to share my screen here. All right. Thanks, everyone, for coming today. We're very excited, as Tree said, to be running our second challenge with CivVic Labs. And this time we're bringing a challenge that is all around all of us, which is related to gig workers and the gig economy that is growing exponentially in the last few years. When we think about gig workers, we can sometimes what's showing in the media might not be true to the reality. We know that gig workers can be temporary and holiday types of employment, but we also know that a lot of gig workers have that as their full-time employment, or sometimes in addition to their full-time employment. What we learned with recent research that we have done is that we have a broad demographic range of workers, and gig work can be both low and highly skilled jobs. This means that currently, this is a conservative number, 7.4% of current Victorian workforce is made of gig workers. And this number is, as I said, is conservative and growing. But looking at the number, I don't think it paints a true picture of the problem that we're facing. If we think about some of the stories that we hear, like, for example, Rose, who is a 55-year-old woman that has worked in cleaning jobs for her entire career. And for the last 2 years, she's been working on a gig platform and doing cleaning work through that platform. What is this type of work provides is a lot of flexibility and control, which is something that Rose is really keen on this stage of life. but we know that this is also only partially regulated. And what happens when something goes wrong? Rose goes to different homes every day. She's exposed to different working environments every day, which presents risks both physically and mentally that she's unaware of. And in the case that Rose gets injured, she's going to be in a very vulnerable situation. Gig workers have, what we have been learning so far is, first, they have complete responsibility to manage their own situation, including self-navigating support services like Centrelink and the health services in Victoria. This is because there's limited obligations from employers and platforms. Gig workers are not considered employees, so they don't have access to the same benefits and supports that regular employees have. Once a gig job is impacted, it can sometimes, as I mentioned before, impact the full-time job if that's the case, which creates a very tricky situation for those gig workers. And it's really hard for them to self-manage superannuation and insurance. What we know as well is that a part of the gig workforce is made of vulnerable workers. Those are workers that come from cultural and linguistic diverse backgrounds, some of them on work visas, and some of them also having had their first job here in Australia. So they definitely can become can be in a very vulnerable situation if an injury, either physical or mental, occurs. So that brings me to our challenge. How might WorkSafe support gig economy workers in adopting a safe approach to work? WorkSafe is the state's regulator for health and safety, which means that we work on the prevention side. We have inspectors out in the field looking and inspecting workers. We provide guidance and support for businesses to implement health and safety practices. And at the same time, we also manage the workers' compensation scheme, which is the insurance scheme that provides support for workers that got injured. So playing on those two sides, we are really keen on understanding how can we better support gig economy workers. And this challenge sits inside the Innovation Center inside WorkSafe, which is a group of multidisciplinary professionals, mainly designers and technologists that are looking to build the future of WorkSafe. We have, as part of this group of people, a lot of support that we can provide to the startups, and we have been providing to the two startups that we have been working before. And we are very, very excited to work and learn from new technologies and new ways of working that startups can bring to WorkSafe. So just to close, we are invite you to submit your application to our challenge. Those submissions can either be solving a problem for the gig workers, specifically a solution that gig workers can use, a solution that employers can use, or something that WorkSafe could be buying to improve our practices. And as I mentioned before, we can not only connect you to the people that work in the Innovation Center, but also experts and specialists in WorkSafe, in health and safety, in insurance, and also provide you access with specific data that you are interested, that it will help you solve the challenge. And we look forward to catching up with all of you during the Q&A session in a few minutes. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Fabio. That brings to a close the formal part of the session. We'd like to thank everybody for your interest and also for bearing with us as we learn how to use this pretty awesome piece of technology. We're really keen for you now to be able to head over to the Q&A sessions, and we've decided to use this platform specifically so you can jump between rooms if you want to. I'm just sharing my screen to show you that if you click on this schedule button on the top left of your screen, you should be able to scroll between the different rooms. The challenge owners are in those rooms now, and they're really looking forward to speaking with you. So if you'd like to make your way there, thank you very much for being part of the session, and we look forward to answering any more questions you have and receiving your applications. Thank you, and we'll see you in the Q&A sessions.